Hello there and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we will be taking a look at the latest release from the undisputed kings of eclectic R&B infused Baroque prog rock, Gentle Giant. The latest in their ongoing series of remixed and retooled albums for stereo, 5.1, and Dolby Atmos is the 1977 double live album Playing the Fool, taken from a series of concerts from their 1976 fall European tour. Playing the Fool, the complete live experience, is a multi-channel reconstruction of a typical live performance from the era. Dan Bornmark, Gentle Giant archivist, composer, and avid fan, helms the restoration and mixing efforts with Haken Fredriksson, taking over the series from Steven Wilson. Previously, Bornmark has worked with Gentle Giant on archival projects such as Scraping the Barrel, Under Construction, and most recently, the Unburied Treasure box set. Playing the Fool, the complete live experience, arrived May 2nd on 2 CD, 2 CD/1 Blu-ray, and 3 LP editions. For the purpose of this review, I'll be taking a look at the 2 CD and 1 Blu-ray edition, with a particular focus on the multi-channel mixes as well as the restored material. So, does this release live up to the hype and expectation? Let's discuss. Gentle Giant were formed in London in 1970 out of the ashes of Simon Dupree and the Big Sound. The classic lineup consisted of the Shulman brothers: Derek, lead and backing vocals, saxophone, recorder, bass guitar, percussion; Ray, bass guitar, violin, guitar, vocals, viola, trumpet, percussion, recorder; and Phil Shulman. However, Phil left after 1972. They were joined by Kerry Minier, keyboards, vocals, cello, vibraphone, xylophone, recorder, guitar, bass guitar, and percussion; Gary Green, guitar, mandolin, vocals, recorder, bass guitar, and percussion; and after 1972, mainstay drummer John Pugwash Weathers. The band's intended mission statement on their 1971 album Acquiring the Taste was to expand the frontiers of contemporary popular music at the risk of becoming very unpopular, which certainly is a good way of summing up their career up until and including Playing the Fool live. However, following this album, they increasingly attempted to make more accessible music. In the mid-70s, the live recording market was flourishing and demand was high. Gentle Giant were indeed bootlegged 3 times by 1975 alone, with the title Playing the Fool appearing on 2 of the 3 boots. The band didn't mind being bootlegged and were proud that fans were willing to go to the trouble to press the records and that people were willing to pay for them. They took pride in it and felt that they'd made it, just like I did when my first album showed up on an illegal Russian MP3 site. However, Peter Frampton's Frampton Comes Alive was released in 1976, and it resulted in Frampton becoming one of rock's most successful acts. Frampton and Gentle Giant had actually shared a bill together before the release of Comes Alive and then later after. On the latter occasion, Gentle Giant witnessed just how much it had transformed his career and decided it was time to make one of their own. On the strength of their most successful studio album to date, Freehand, and encouraging sales from Interview, the band decided it was time to release an official live document. The band were working hard and often and at their peak as a live band, so the timing was just right. Around this time, they learned that Chrysalis label mates Jethro Tull had set up their own mobile recording studio in Fulham. The band rented the mobile and took it, along with engineer Paul Northfield, on their 1976 fall European tour. This leg included performances in Dusseldorf, Munich, Paris, and Brussels, all of which were captured by Northfield with Tull's Maison Rouge mobile rig. Some technical issues aside, the 4 shows provided the band with more than enough material to cull a live record from. The Dusseldorf show was first and essential in getting the recording jitters worked out. Yet, in the liner notes for this Playing the Fool reissue, John Weathers and Kerry Minier say that the nerves evaporated once things got underway, and they realized they were playing well together. In Circus Cone, Munich, the band played well, despite the faint whiff of animal droppings, but found the venue acoustics and the audience response to their liking. In Brussels, they fought against power issues. When Kerry Minier's keyboards failed before So Sincere, it led to the Sweet Georgia Brown Jam, a jazz standard that Gary Green and Ray Shulman used as a dressing room warm-up. However, it was the Paris performance that proved the most successful for all involved, and provided around 6 songs to the final album running order. Despite there being only small, nuanced differences night to night in performance and arrangement, Paris had the best sounding room, with even engineer Paul Northfield enthusing to the band that night about the magic that had just been captured. Upon returning from the European 76 tour, the band selected the performances to be used on the final album track listing. Due to the time constraints of vinyl and the fact that the interview material was less than a year old, it was the first to be left on the cutting room floor. The only song that remained on the original release was the final number, I Lost My Head, in a medley with Peel the Paint, meaning that songs like Interview and Timing, featuring Ray's brilliant violin solo, didn't make the cut until this new edition. Playing the Fool was finally released in January 1977, which, according to singer Derek Schulman, accurately reflected who Gentle Giant were as a live band at the time. They liked the bootleg name, Playing the Fool, well enough that they stole it, albeit with the added subtitle, The Official Live Gentle Giant, in order to beat the bootleggers. The new complete live experience version of Playing the Fool, reimagined by Dan Bornmark, attempts to restore all of the material and in the correct concert running order for the first time in multi-channel. Derek Schulman's in-between song banter and introductions have also been restored, making it a reasonable facsimile of what an evening with Gentle Giant might have been like in the fall of 1976. Gentle Giant's music has always been imbued with more technicality and more multi-instrumental and vocal prowess than many other bands at the time, aside from maybe Frank Zappa. For me, their live album makes one important statement: we can pull it off live. I feel this is so crucial to establishing a band's reputation. With Gentle Giant's Playing the Fool, we have a well-recorded and well-curated survey of the back catalog. Every single one of the band's studio albums up until that point is represented, though acquiring the taste only briefly, which gives such a well-rounded view of what this band had to offer at this time. From the then recently released Freehand album, we get Just the Same, On Reflection, and the title track, all of which are played with energy and conviction that at times surpass even the studio versions. Not only does Playing the Fool provide a treat to the Gentle Giant faithful, it offers a way in for catalog newcomers that goes well beyond a simple best of compilation and into the realm of performance and showmanship. We get to hear 2 of the key, yet most demanding pieces from In a Glass House, Runaway and Experience, as well as a barnstorming rendition of several memorable Octopus tunes in the form of the excerpts from Octopus Medley. The astonishing Boys in the Band is performed impeccably, and we are treated to the flawless, serpentine vocal harmonies of Knots before launching into a formidable rendition of The Advent of Panurge. All of this is punctuated by extensions of those already elaborate numbers, with showmanship opportunities, like the recorder feature in The Advent of Panurge, and Gary and Ray's acoustic guitar duet in The Boys in the Band. I find these moments show just how great entertainers the band really were at this time. So Sincere from The Power and the Glory is greatly extended with a drum ensemble feature, including all 5 members of the band either pounding or twinkling on percussive instruments. A 5-man lineup that could easily make the sounds of 10. Also included is the more energetic and show-stopping rendition of debut album favorite Funny Ways, which updates it and transforms it into a legendary crowd-pleasing number thanks to Carey's virtuosic vibraphone solo. Most of all, Playing the Fool reminds me of why I love Gentle Giant. The inventiveness of the writing and arrangements, the ability to pivot between classical Baroque delicateness to rock and roll power on a dime, the attention to memorable melody and songs, matched only by the complexity of the arrangements. The eclectic and impressive swapping of instruments till you aren't quite sure even who's playing what at any given moment. To the pure, infectious fun and energy these guys bring to the whole thing. It's an essential live album of the progressive era and a wonderful document from this highly gifted and creative band. Favorite songs for me include Peel the Paint / I Lost My Head, excerpts from Octopus, of course, and finally Timing, including Ray's violin solo. The packaging for this release offers a slight departure from the previous editions of this series, though unlike the UK versions, the US version is still roughly the same size and dimensions as the older ones, and fits nicely on the shelf next to them. It's sturdy and provides good value for the money, I feel, and contains a number of really great and interesting photos throughout to set the mood. I'm not a big fan of the way the discs slide into the booklet pages, as I fear it will result in scratched discs. They aren't particularly well secured, and the bottom of the booklet pages are split, which concerns me that in time they will tear completely, and the discs will begin falling out. You have to physically touch the discs to remove them, which is a fingerprint magnet. I hope in the future better care is taken with the packaging design, like in previous reissues. The full-color booklet included, however, is fantastic, and it does provide much-needed context to the album, including interviews with the surviving members of the band and engineer Dan Bornmark. In fact, the liner notes provided invaluable research and information for this review. You also get this full-color fold-out poster included. It's not essential for me, but I like small touches like this. Plus, it does restore the original LP gatefold image. Overall, this packaging style reminds me a lot of some of the earlier Porcupine Tree reissues, like Signify, although I do wish more care had been taken with the securing of the discs. If you have the Unburied Treasure box set with the complete concert reels of Paris, Munich, Dusseldorf, and Brussels, it's likely not an essential purchase. I don't hear much difference between the Unburied Treasure mixes and the ones presented here, at least in terms of fidelity. I'd even argue that the Unburied Treasure masters are much quieter, but I can hear in these 2025 versions where Bornmark was able to clean up some of the tapes and free them of noise and sonic issues. The main draw of the set, however, is in the multi-channel mixes and the concept of a reconstructed playing the full live album, as well as the 1976 Gentle Giant live concert experience. Unfortunately, not all of the multi-track tapes were available for this reconstruction, so a few songs are different performances from the ones the band selected for use in 1976. These songs are Just the Same, Proclamation, and Funny Ways. I find these performances to be a little inferior to the original ones, because Derek Schulman's voice is quite hoarse. However, the band itself plays splendidly. As two of these songs are the opening cuts of the album, it does unfortunately mean that the new version gets off to a rough start for me, but gradually it gets better once we move to the originally selected performances. The stated goal of the new stereo, 5.1, and Dolby Atmos mixes is to increase the separation, definition, and positioning of the instruments and voices. While the original album mixes were completed in just under a week, Bornmark took much more time and care to remove clicks and pops, equipment noises, and other unwanted and non-musical sounds from the recordings, something only possible by having access to the multi-track tapes and today's digital editing technology. Through these digital tools, Bornmark was able to provide a sense of consistency to the fidelity among the four venues, which I think works really well. As for the multi-channel placement, the mix is designed to place you in the middle of the audience. There are audience members around you, but the band is also close. The band members are placed in the space according to their stage arrangement, as in Gary is a little left, Carrie is on the right, and so on, but also with an ear toward moving the band members based on where they might be on stage at any given moment. Among the stereo, 5.1, and Dolby Atmos mix choices, my undisputed favorite is the 5.1. For some reason, the Dolby Atmos mix is quite loud, and to my ears, the dynamics are a little bit compromised. Compared to the 5.1, there's very little back-channel activity, which is baffling to me. I do appreciate that the heights are used to great effect in the drum ensemble section of So Sincere, as well as the recorders in Advent of Panurge, but overall, I find the 5.1 mix so much more satisfying. The 5.1 mix sounds full and lifelike, and certainly provides more clarity and separation than the 2005 35th Anniversary CD, which is the one I'm most accustomed to. It's also punchier than the Unburied Treasure masters. It's definitely louder than those, but it's cleaner. Ray Schulman's bass is given much more prominence in this mix, which is in keeping with the precedent set by the Wilson mixes. It retains much of the dynamics that I'm used to hearing from Wilson's mixes, but I do feel like there could be more. For instance, compare the mix of excerpts from Octopus on this disc to the 5.1 version Wilson did of this same recording on the 2012 release of Octopus. I definitely hear more power when the band kicks in after some of the quieter sections. Now, this may not be a deal breaker to some, and some may even prefer the dynamics to be slightly closer together, but I just feel that for my own personal taste, the 2012 version of Excerpts from Octopus is richer, more textured, and much more beautiful, if lacking somewhat in the bass presence. That being said, the 5.1 mix of Playing the Fool from Dan Bornmark is actually really, really good. It cranks up especially great, and I really enjoy hearing the songs that were left off the original LP release, like the offbeat, funky timing, complete with the Ray Shulman violin solo bouncing around your head. The aforementioned drum feature in So Sincere is definitely a disc highlight in any mix iteration. I love hearing those parts panning and shifting all around me, and it's totally immersive. The glockenspiel and higher percussion is really sweet, and at one point a bass drum stomped really hard at the back of my room and woke up my poor cat who was sleeping on my lap. In the recorder section of Panurge, they are each hiding in one of the 4 speakers, and when Weathers kicks in with the drums on this section, it's massive. Despite my reservations of some of the compressed dynamics, I find this mix is punchy and lifelike, even in the stereo iteration. I think it does a good job overall of taking you back in time and putting you there. Something I really appreciate is how the instrument placement highlights how textured their arrangements are. Gary Green's guitars and Carey's keyboards are separated in a way that you can discern them clearly. However, it's the acoustic instruments that sound arguably the best. And it's the rockier bits that sometimes get a little bit muddy for me, and I suspect that this is due to the slightly compromised dynamics. Despite Bornmark's attempts to clean up some of the noise and buzz and other technical gremlins, you still hear some stuff, but I actually don't mind this. It's true to life, and it feels very real. I wanted to mention that I really appreciate Noah Schulman's visuals that play during the multi-channel presentation. I feel that they aid the music and don't distract. Usually, I'm the sort who turns my TV screen off when listening to 5.1, but these are really nicely done. Previous Gentle Giant discs, especially the freehand one, could get distracting in the visuals, but here I feel that they do a nice job and they serve the music and overall experience. I have to credit this multi-channel Gentle Giant reissue series for making me interested in this band again after so many years. The 5.1 and Atmos mixes reveal so much of this music to me, and I always feel that the Gentle Giant multi-channel series was among the best because it kept the band relevant and up to date. I'd even argue that they are perhaps more beloved now than ever. I would insist that this release, helmed by Dan Bornmark, continues that tradition, and in many ways absolutely lives up to expectation. Now that I've had the chance to absorb it, I'm actually pretty happy with it. I just wish sometimes that it was as dynamic as the Wilson mixes are. It's not compressed enough to be unlistenable or change the character in any meaningful way, and it's certainly not brickwalled. It might simply be up to personal preference, which approach you prefer. I recommend this if you love Gentle Giant, and especially their multi-channel series. I'm not sure if it's necessary, though, if you have the big box set with the complete reels, and if you aren't interested in multi-channel 5.1 or Atmos. Don't forget, before you go, to like the video and also subscribe to the channel. The next thing I hope to talk about is Frank Zappa's Cheaper Than Cheap, which is coming to CD and Blu-ray. I'm not sure when. The tracking is very confusing. I hoped it would be here today, but it's looking like it's going to be sometime early next week. I'm also not sure when exactly I'm going to get a chance to review Cheaper Than Cheap. It might be a little bit later than usual because I'm going back into the studio next weekend with Reefer Stramus. So you might see that review come out a few days later than what you'd normally expect. But until then, it's been great talking to you. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. How do you feel about the Gentle Giant Playing the Fool complete live experience? How do you feel about the new mixes from Dan Bornmark? Do you feel that they live up to the incredibly high standard established by Steven Wilson's work in this series? Let me know below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, bye-bye, and I'll see you soon.